Hi, Erica. Welcome to the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast.
Hi, Julia. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, I'm excited to have you here. I can't wait for our conversation and kind of diving into a topic that I think is incredibly common, but that we haven't talked a whole lot about. So I'm looking forward to getting your expertise on all of that. What I would love to do to start is if you could share with our listeners a little bit about what you're currently doing with your IHP certification and any other kind of career-based stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am an IHP level 1 and 2. I brand myself as a burnout recovery and prevention coach. I'm also a human design guide. So in my health coaching practice, I combine the world of science with functional medicine, labs, nutrition, supplementation to help rebalance the physical body after burnout, exhaustion, fatigue. And then I also incorporate an element of spirituality with human design because human design is very excellent at helping us recalibrate our energy and how we're operating so that we don't burn ourselves out in the future. So there's a lot of people out there who, you can find information to balance the physical body, but then if you keep working in a way that's burning you out, you're just going to continue in that cycle. So I find that element of energetic recalibration is really helpful. And so that's what I'm doing right now.
Okay. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think a lot of us who come into this space, we tend to be naturally kind of like our nature tends to be more empathic. We tend to be like deeper feelers, and it's easy for us to kind of go down this path with it almost disguised as, being helpers and being, quote unquote healers or, doing good things. It's not like we're burning ourselves out, partying till 2 a.m., right? We're doing something that's really helpful and constructive and important in this world, but that can lead to feelings of burnout if it's not done in balance, like anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And my own story, I think as coaches, we tend to have our mess become our message, right? We do this work because we've had to figure stuff out for ourselves. So very much the reason that I'm a burnout recovery coach is because I know burnout intimately with my own story. And that's exactly it. What you just said. It's like, I'm very much empathic and here to serve people, but I have to keep that balance of how much I'm giving versus how much I'm keeping for myself. So that's a big thing to consider with burnout.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So let's back it up a little bit, which you kind of just teased there for a second. So how did you get into IHP work? What kind of led you here? Is it something that you've always been interested in? Is coaching always something that you've done? Give us kind of a little backup story and kind of work up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So my story definitely does not start with knowing what I wanted to do or going right into health coaching. I've always been very interested in nutrition and wellness and loved reading books or listening to podcasts or whatever about how to be healthier. I've always had a really big interest in supplements. So that's been something, just on my interest list for a long time. I actually have had a corporate day job for going on 11 years now, where I plan government technology conferences. So definitely nothing related to health. And I got the job when I was 24 or something, and it involved traveling about half the year, which was really fun when I was young. But I was also dealing with symptoms of mystery chronic illness around the time that I got that job. And my dad's a doctor. So being a good little patient, I would go to the doctor and get my medicine and take that. And that worked for a long time until it didn't. And I reached my depth of burnout in 2019, where my symptoms would only flare up once a year usually. And then in 2019, it flared up 5 times in 6 months. And that was my wake up call from the universe that, okay, something's not working here. And looking back, I think again, every health coach may have this moment of looking back to their aha moment that really changed the trajectory of their life. And that was it for me. So it sent me down this rabbit hole of, if I'm going to figure this out, I'm going to have to do it myself. I need to become an advocate for my health and my body, because my doctors were basically just telling me my labs were normal. So there wasn't really anything we could do. And I eventually found Dr. Cabral around summer of 2019, heard him on a podcast, and then just immediately knew there's something inside me clicked, and it was I have to see what this is. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I did my first functional medicine detox. And then, in the podcast started hearing about IHP. And so later that year signed up and really haven't looked back. And selfishly, when I first started on that journey, I was very eager to figure out my own symptoms, but always knew that I wanted to bring it to clients, which I've had my health coaching practice for a little over 2 years now. So in the beginning, I had some other certifications, and then being able to bring labs to clients is just so game changing, right? Because I'm sure this has been talked about on this podcast, obviously, but it's just no guessing, right? It's like I can find someone or someone can find me and I can help run their labs. We can get the data and not immediately, but we can help them get success in their health journey. So my path brought me to here from my own health challenges, which when you're going through that, it's very much like, why me? Why is this happening? But looking back, it's just like, I couldn't have gotten here any other way. So I'm so grateful that my body, gave me all of those signs and signals to figure this out. And now I'm, building a business that fulfills me. I'm helping people. And again, that burnout piece has been so important because I also, once I started my business, I also kind of went down the rabbit hole of burnout, had to figure some of that out for myself, but that's how I've gotten to this point.
Okay. Yeah. And the truth is, I've said it before on this podcast, but, we can look at our circumstances as happening like to us or happening for us. Right. And I think what sets someone apart from feeling grateful and kind of having it become a little bit of their life's mission is, this happened for me. And now I get to kind of pay it forward in a way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I would love for you to share a little bit about kind of what you did to maybe signs and symptoms that you saw potentially in like starting your business and what you did to prevent burnout. Or did you completely start your own company and leave the other job that you were doing? Kind of what was your transition like?
Yeah. So in deciding how to do that, right? There's so much information out there. There's people who are like, just jump ship, go all in, have all your time and space be for your business. And then, there's everything in between of that. And for me, I tend to be more risk averse. I like to have a plan. I like to feel safe. I'm a highly sensitive person, so I get kind of overwhelmed with certain things easily. And though I felt so deeply connected to my mission, and I knew that taking this step to start serving people was the absolute right thing to do, I still had this element of caution where I was like, well, I've built this life. I had a lot of success in my corporate job, and I have a level of, life that I live, and I wasn't really willing to fully give that up. So one thing that I just decided, and this tends to be a mentality that I have with a lot of things in life, is like, you don't have to do things by the rules just because people say it's like, this is how you start your business or this is what it's supposed to look like. I think it's really important to always come back and be like, well, what feels good to me? What makes sense to me? What makes sense for my situation? So I was very fortunate because I was a director, or I am a director in my company. I still work part-time for my day job. And at the time, no one else in my position had this set up, but I went to my boss and I said, this is where I'm at. I want to start this business on the side, do something I'm passionate about, but I would love to continue working with you. So long story short, they allowed me to stay on part-time. I plan events. So they just gave me half the amount of events. And then I started taking clients in January of 2020. So it still kind of felt like a side gig at that point. But I'd say last year was the first year it really started building momentum and started feeling more like a business. But what this did is it allowed me to feel secure and more abundant financially, right? Because my salary was paying my bills. And then in my business, I was able to experiment, really figure out what was working, what wasn't working, and even more importantly, who I was really serving. Because I think all coaches go through this in the beginning, right? We want to help people, and we're like, if anyone comes into our orbit, we're like, yes, I can serve you. Like I can figure this out. And then that is definitely one way to burn yourself out, right? Trying to help people that, maybe you can help them, but is it really your ideal client? So I had to, I don't know, it's like kissing a lot of frogs to find the prince or princess, I guess. Right. And And so my first year in business was just trying to help everyone and anyone. Definitely burnt myself out a little bit there. And then year 2 was burning myself out. I mean, this was during the pandemic, so it wasn't like there was a lot of other things for me to do. And I worked all day, all night. I worked every weekend. I was so devoted to making my business work, which, the way that my energy works was not sustainable. So the reason I started branding myself as a burnout recovery coach was, I think, in February or March of 2021, because after coming out of winter, I was like, oh, like my symptoms were coming back again from my chronic illness. And again, that was my sign from my body that, hey, something you're doing isn't working anymore. So hopefully that answers your question, but that was my experience with burning myself out in my business and just getting started.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, again, everybody's different. And you kind of touched upon the fact that yourself. And I think that this is where it is so beneficial for us to kind of be in touch with what do we need? What are the boundaries that we need to set? Because there's so much about our individual needs that would then determine what's the best way to actually start a business, right? For some people who are incredibly type A and they just have no, it's a one-track mind, this is going to succeed. It doesn't matter. I'm going to jump in and the parachute will open and it's going to be great. And that's good because if that's your mindset, it probably will, right? But for somebody who has a more fragile nervous system, or for somebody who just needs to kind of see a little bit of the staircase to keep walking, then for those people, it really can be way more beneficial to kind of just take small incremental steps to where your nervous system is this is safe, this is good, this is fulfilling, and it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And just like any nutrition plan, any wellness plan is going to be different for everybody. The way that you start a business and kind of move through things depends on a lot of factors, right? Do you have a family? Do you not have a family?
Yes.
What are your bills like? What are they not like? Are you maybe fortunate enough to live with a, family member? Are you not? It's endless as far as the factors that go into it.
Totally. And I was very lucky because my job that I had, though I'm not super passionate about government technology, it was a really good situation, right? I was happy with the company. And if it wasn't for me waking up and just wanting to really expand and jump into health coaching, I probably would have been happy there forever. So being able to go down part-time, it's not like I was in a toxic job situation where I know a lot of people are, right? If you're just I need out of this job and I want to go start something else, and entrepreneurship and health coaching is a great option, then exactly. It's really important to eliminate the comparison. I think go out there and see how other people are doing it. That's another thing I love about IHP is the kind of business guidance where it's hey, here's a model that has worked. And even for health plans and whatnot, it's I like to follow everything really strictly for a few weeks or maybe even a few months, but then I usually back off and I'm what worked for me and what didn't. And then now the way that I eat or the way that I run my business, it's I worked with a lot of coaches who had advice that worked for me. And then they also had advice that did not work for me. So it's I picked and pulled and I put together my own plan based on what I need. And some days, I will admit, it gets overwhelming because it's well, I wish I just had this step-by-step, what am I supposed to do next? And sometimes you have to just have this element of self-trust that will really deep down, I probably know what I can do next. And also, it's a little bit of an experiment, and it's okay if there's some, failing, which isn't really failing. So it's just this kind of beautiful puzzle that we're putting together as we go. And, definitely grateful for the journey, for the ups and downs of it.
Yes. Yeah. And the trust aspect of it is, it's so paramount to, the staircase, I always say, just get on the next step and the next one will appear. And it's kind of, like you said, it can be a little bit daunting to kind of just trust, but as long as you're kind of committed to seeing at least what's coming next, that's the biggest aspect.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
So since we have a majority of kind of coaches listening or aspiring coaches, maybe they've started their own business. Maybe they haven't, maybe they're just, new in IHP and they're kind of already thinking like, gosh, this seems so overwhelming. I don't know how I'll do this. Or what would kind of be one of your biggest pieces of advice for a coach, whether maybe they're thinking about starting a business or they already have a business as far as burnout's concerned? So I'm sure you have lots of ways that you kind of guide clients through burnout. Is there some sort of like business coach type of advice that you would give in that regard?
Yeah. The thing that comes up immediately for me is playing around with any limiting beliefs that you have around what a health coach is supposed to be, or what a coaching practice is meant to look like, or any self-imposed rules that you're putting on yourself that are limiting you from just getting started, right? When I got my first client, I was working with a business coach at a time. And that actually, side note, that would be another piece of advice is when you find someone you trust or someone that feels good, don't be afraid to invest in support. There's lots of options out there that can be even more overwhelming, but I've had a lot of amazing coaches who have helped me move forward. But anyway, I was looking to get my first client. I had been showing up on social media for like 6 months, sharing my journey, sharing my story. And then finally I was like, I'm ready to get my first paying client. And I remember going to my coach and I was like, no one's signing up. No one's reaching out. And she said something very simple and very life-changing to me. She said, well, are you telling them that you're open for business? Are you telling them that you have spots to like work with clients? And it was like that simple thing. I think I had just forgotten to like say like, hey, I want to work with you. So it's like not being afraid to put yourself out there, not being afraid to just get started, not worrying about whether or not you're ready, because wherever you are at this point, there's someone out there who you have the correct medicine for, right? It's like, there's always going to be someone who's like a few steps behind that you have enough information to help. So don't worry too much about being like fully ready. And if it feels good, just kind of jump in and knowing and trust that, the people who are meant for you will show up for you.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's one thing that Dr. Cabral always said to me. And I've said it before on this podcast. When I first started coaching, he used to say to me, what you need to remember, because I would get super self-conscious about like, well, what if they ask me this? Like, I don't know the answer to like that. And you can get like super in the weeds of what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, you are still the expert. If you are sitting down with a client who needs your help, you know more than them. Mm-hmm. What you know will be able to help and potentially change their life. And you're still the expert. Could you know more? Will you know more someday? Absolutely. Doesn't mean that you're not qualified to help someone in this moment, right? And so we can get, I think especially with the introduction of social media, which there wasn't when I started coaching 10 plus years ago, was I didn't really know that there was like all of these people right out there talking about all the same things, right? Like, does she know more about hormones than I do? And like, oh my gosh, that's like so much information on parasites. Or you can kind of compare yourself so much easier with social media these days.
Yes.
So-and-so has more followers, or,
comparison burnout.
Yes. Okay. Comparison burnout, which let's talk about that in a second. It can feel like this drain, essentially, right? A burnout of what I need to know more in order to put myself out there and be quote unquote good enough to, start a business and get clients, right? Elaborate on comparison burnout a little bit, because it sounds like it's probably going right along with what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it's fun to just put burnout afterwards. And I'm like, you can burn out in any aspect of life, right? Like, so we can just make up terms, but truly, especially as someone who has gotten a little too obsessive on Instagram, right? Social media is designed to be addictive. Mm-hmm. And the comparison burnout to me just feels like so for me, it feels like when I feel like I'm doing really well in my business, I'm excited about my marketing, my offers, clients are coming in, and then I get on social media to scroll, or I don't know, whatever other platforms might create this. And you start, again, seeing what other people are doing, or you see someone else talk about a topic that you don't know as much about. And then you're like, oh, I should know more about that. Like, I need to go read a book. So it just creates this, it's like comparison paralysis analysis type situation, where instead of just staying grounded in your power of, like you said, where it's like, I'm still the expert. I still know enough to help people. Everything else will fill in. Like you have your whole life to expand your knowledge and keep learning and keep growing. And also one thing I would add is I remember one time I was working with a doctor, like during my time figuring out my own health stuff. And at one point I asked a question and they simply said, I don't know, let me research that and I'll get back to you. And I have never had more respect for a doctor than I did in that moment when they admitted like, hey, this is, I mean, they didn't say it like this, but it was like, oh, that's not really something I know. Like I'm going to go look that up and then I'll get back to you. So that's the other thing as a health coach. Like if I'm on a client call and there is something I really don't know, I mean, it's like, okay, let me write that down. I'm going to send you some information on that. So there's no rule that says you have to have all the answers all the time on every call and every moment. So yeah.
Yes. And that, in my opinion, only further builds the trust between you and the client, because then the client's like, well, everything that she has answered up until now, she's probably pretty confident in, or she would have said that about, the other thing that I asked, right? So they then trust the knowledge that you've already shared and also trust you in the future to research something if you're not sure, or at least admit and not kind of, and I think too, like that, those are the, actual like functional things that the person would trust. But then I think whenever because we can live in, we'll talk about perfection burnout next, because we can live in this world where it's very easy to look at somebody else and think like they've got it all together, right? Because we can just look at highlight reels. I think people really connect and feel safe and can get vulnerable and their nervous system can relax when they're with people who are really fine to just be imperfectly themselves. And again, without the client being able to articulate a single bit of what I just said, it's possible that then like they just relax into your help, your presence, your support, and they get better results because now they're kind of like in this trusted relationship with you.
Yeah. And that really is what it is, right? It's a relationship. It's about being a human and connecting with another human. And yes, some things that can help that other human. But at the end of the day, if you can just come in being ready to listen and provide in whatever way you can, I mean, you'll be successful every time, right? I mean, I'm sure this has been talked about on the podcast before, where most of the time, like, especially in initial intakes, I mean, people come out of those 60 or 90 minutes just being like, it's been so nice to just be heard and like share my story and have you just listen, because, so often in other spaces that doesn't happen. So that relationship piece, I think, is such an important piece to touch on.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I've had clients in the first 3 minutes of a call. Sometimes I'll just ask them a question. I'll be like, and what's, your level of stress? Or they'll say something and I could simply respond by, wow, that must be really hard. It could be like just as simple as asking a question or acknowledging something that they've said, and they literally break down into like full blown tears. And they're like, I'm so sorry. I don't even like and they always say the same thing. They're like, I don't even know why I'm crying. And I'm like, I know why you're crying.
Yeah.
You're crying.
That's an idea.
Yeah. Your nervous system has like been wired essentially for like, and a lot of these people come to us with like already having maybe like these preconceived notions from what other practitioners have said to them, like maybe I'm crazy, maybe it's all in my head. And finally, like having someone just validate those are real feelings. There must be something going on here. And I'm going to kind of help you uncover it can be so emotional for people who've just been like up against this, roadblock of feeling like I'm crazy and no one can help me.
Yeah. And another really good way to burn yourself out is to suppress your emotions, which we're very much taught, whether directly or indirectly, to do so much. So that happens a lot with calls for me too. It's like all of a sudden there's just this release, and there's not, if you don't intentionally create safe space for yourself to feel and experience your emotions, then like when you get into a container like this, it's like, it's all just going to come out, and it's beautiful because we need to let that stuff up.
Yeah. I'm always like, it's okay. I'm like, keep crying. They're like, this is so embarrassing. I'm like, oh, it's fine. If you cry long enough, I'll start crying too. And then we'll both be crying and it'll be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the truth is it's actually an energetic release, right? Like crying is meant to energetically release whatever's kind of been bottled up. When I was younger, my dad used to always say, and like, he didn't necessarily like know consciously what I just said, but he used to always say like, it's okay to cry. Everything needs water to grow.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I mean, literally, right? Because like when your emotions are allowed to kind of be felt, that's when you can then like see and feel what it's telling you. Right. But we're just like so used to kind of like press. And it's like a pressure cooker and then
exactly. Yeah. And only because I have to touch on human design in every conversation. I won't go too into the weeds, but part of my design, my emotions are part of my power, right? Like the emotional solar plexus is connected to my throat. So if I'm not expressing my emotions, if I'm not feeling them, that's honestly when I get my symptoms, which happens, like I get a full body rash. When I start feeling those symptoms, usually I stop and check in. It's usually not food anymore. I'm not like over working out or not sleeping enough. It's usually something to do with emotional energy where, oh, I've been suppressing something or have this like situation with my friend that I just need to process. And as soon as I either journal about it or just kind of have a good cry or I don't know, go hit a pillow to let out some rage, it's like that energetic release, those symptoms are alleviated. So our emotions are so powerful in that. And for burnout too, because that, burnout really, it's like my oversimplified definition of it is we're using our energy in a way that's incorrect for us. And that can come down to, on a physical, scientific level, really our nervous system, right? We're burning through our nervous system in a way that doesn't serve us, but then our emotions play a huge part in that too. So that's another piece I include in my coaching, just as like, how about let's start processing our emotions? Because the simplest thing can just help out.
Yes, absolutely. And this is why I believe women specifically are so much more prone to burnout because we have not to mention like more of a hormonal complexity to us, but also we tend to be more emotional beings than men. Not that men, because I think men, if we were to let them be in their, natural state and they weren't so influenced by societal, type of, they would be maybe equal, but we're probably a little bit more, just because of, hormonal and whatnot. And so I think that we kind of can tend to get burnt out in a more extreme way than men tend to, or at least that's my feeling. Do you see something similar?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I do work with actually more male clients than I had anticipated. When I first started working, I wanted to work with women, but I wasn't really, didn't really like advertise for that. And I have definitely attracted lots of male clients over the years that I think what you're saying, it's like, I think intuitively they're drawn to, it's like, okay, I think there's something here, but overall, the majority of the clients I see are female or female identifying. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So back to the human design piece, because I love that. And I want you to share a little bit more about it. So if someone's listening and they're like, human design, what do you mean? Your emotions or your power? Give us a little bit of kind of your take on human design, how you tend to use it as a tool when you're coaching clients, or if you would rather talk about it as how like a coach could use it as a tool in their business.
Oh, yeah.
Either or both would be great. So a little bit about what it is maybe first for those who don't know.
Feel free to reel me in if I start getting off on a tangent. But so first of all, apologies to anyone listening who has never heard about human design, because you're about to get a whole new rabbit hole to go down. But human design is a spiritual system of self-awareness. And I say spiritual because it is based on the time that you are born. So it's kind of like the cousin of astrology, only with human design. Everything is energy. So we're dealing with how your energy works. And what happens is a lot of us are conditioned out of operating in a way that serves us. And in human design, there are 5 different energy types: generator, manifesting generator, manifester, projector, and reflector. So you can go pull your chart for free online. You just need your as exact birth time as possible. If you don't have the exact, reach out to me. I can help you figure it out. But anyway, there's free websites online where you can pull your chart. And I'll give you an example in my own life. So I'm a manifester. We are only 9% of the population. And it's very common for manifestors to be conditioned to operate like generators or manifesting generators. The reason this is an issue is because, so if you're a generator or manifesting generator, you have the gift of sustainable energy. When you're lit up and excited about things, this is the type of person that can sit down at the computer. They can work, for 16 hours straight and then look up and be like, oh, like it's dark outside. I haven't even eaten. And they really they're able to just use that energy until it's all the way used up. As a manifester, I do not have that sustainable energy. I work much better when I allow myself to work for a few hours, take a break, go outside, be in nature, maybe come back. Definitely, I have learned that I need at least one full day off on the weekend. If I can take 2, great. And the key here is it's not that I can't get as much done as a generator type, but for me, I'm most productive at certain times when my energy is on. And that can be true for everyone to a certain degree, right?
Yeah.
But all of that to say, especially in my business, when I first started and I mentioned that I burned myself out working all the time. Now I still get as much done, but I have to just work with my energy instead of feeling frustrated when I'm at my computer. I'm trying to do more, make content, do whatever. I just feel those signals that I'm done and then I take a break. Whereas a generator type, they just may not run up against those stop signs quite as much. And then the reason that this can be so useful and helpful for people starting a business, again, because depending on your energy type, there's different strategies for how you're meant to interact with people or how you're meant to make decisions. So one other quick example I'll give is if you're a generator type, which these are 75% of the population they have a true gut instinct, right? They can connect to what we call your sacral center, your sacral response. And in the moment, a generator type can be like, yep, this is for me, or nope. Do you know your human design type?
I don't, but I'm my birth certificate is in this drawer right in front of me.
You'll just send it to me later.
As soon as we're done, I'm going to pull it out. It's got my birth time on it, and I'm going to,
I love it.
I'm going to find out.
You'll have to message me and let me know what you find out. Yes. But this has been a big...
My guess is I'm not a generator.
Okay.
My guess is I'm probably more like you. I do not there is from whatever you just said. And I know that there's obviously projector and I am not a put my head down for 16 hours. No.
Yeah. No, thank you. So with the generator type in that sacral response, it's that's the gut instinct that people talk about, right? So in the past, when coaches have told me, what's your gut say? Listen to your gut. I'm like, I don't know. My gut isn't saying anything. I have intuition, but that's more quick and quiet. Mm-hmm. So with coaching now, when I pull someone's human design chart and I see that they're a generator, I can coach them in a way, if they're making a decision, I'm like, well, what does your gut say? Is this a yes or no? Mm-hmm. Right. But if they're a manifestor, projector, reflector, we're looking at their authority, which is how you're meant to make decisions. And there's all different kinds. Some people need to talk things through to make decisions. Some people are meant to listen to their intuition. There's 7 different kinds. So, we won't go all the way into all of them, but it's just really interesting. And it's very gentle, right? So it's all a suggestion. Human design is not meant to be a dogmatic set of rules. It's not a religion. It's just energy. There's a low expression and a high expression. So you can always figure out where you are on the spectrum and then move to a place to help you. And especially in business, this is how I've created everything in my life. Following my human design and going all in that experiment. And especially with my business, whenever things feel frustrating or overwhelming, I just kind of come back to okay, where am I out of alignment here? And human design is kind of this blueprint guide of we were talking so much before about what's the next step I'm meant to take. Mm-hmm. And human design brings us back to our body wisdom of I know exactly what I need to do. I just have to learn how to speak the language of my energy and what I need. So that's my very maybe disjointed description of what human design is and how we can use it as coaches.
Yeah, that's super, super interesting and helpful. I think it kind of goes back to any relationship, right? You could even it could be a friend relationship. I'm thinking my husband is probably a generator. He's just where do you want to go to dinner? Hello, I just asked you where you went. I'm like, I don't know where I want to go to dinner. I need to think about it. I need to talk about it. Like, what are the options? Maybe we need to make a reservation. I mean, what, and he's like, why are we having a 20-minute conversation about this? Just tell me where you want to go to dinner. And I'm like, I don't know.
We need some time. You might have an emotional authority where we're meant to take time to make our decisions and ride the waves of our emotions and see how things make us feel. So yeah. And to your point, I think human design is most it's great for understanding yourself, but I think it's most beneficial where it doesn't get enough credit is deepening our connection to others, understanding other people, because it truly is the science of differentiation. So it's based on the idea that we're all different. And especially in coaching, right? I mean, Dr. Cabral talks about this all the time, bioindividuality. Everyone's different. So we can't coach people like we would want to be coached. Or even in my programming, I have a lot of trouble now creating any sort of like systematic approach because I'm like, well, I need to get to know this person. I need to know how their energy works. And then I can kind of put together something that works for them. Because there are some clients, I find generator clients are more open to like, whatever, let's just go like this is go time. This feels good. Let's go right in. I'm going to follow your plan exactly. And then my manifestor, projector, reflector clients are like, can we go really slow? And not always, that's not always the case, but it's like, there's nuances here. So it helped. Yeah. I'm dating a manifesting generator, which the manifesting generator relationship is like, I get like spurts of energy, but a manifesting generator is like all over the place, meant to do a million things at a time. And like that energy used to feel chaotic to me, but now that I understand it, I'm like, oh, that's just how you're meant to operate. And I accept you for who you are. So
yes. Yeah. And I love that you said it basically just helps us understand the relationship, whether it's a coach, whether it's a romantic relationship, whether it's a friend relationship. And we're able to, it's just one more tool, right? We don't believe that any of these things are like the end all be all, but it's one more tool to relate to your client, potentially have more success with one, the connection, but two, how you're able to present information. Cause I try not to be too much or like, here's the plan, like, let's go all in because that would feel super overwhelming for me. Right. But some people are like, just give me the plan. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it 100%. Like it's who I am. And I'm like, good for you. Wow. Okay. Here's the plan.
I have the same experience. I have to like constantly check in with myself. Okay. But am I coaching this person or am I holding back because I like, especially with burnout recovery, it's like I had such a fear of burning out after I burnt all the way out. It's like I was going slow with myself and my clients. And I was like, oh, this isn't serving everyone well because what I need isn't necessarily what they need. So it's like this constant check-in of like, okay, I need to protect my own energy and take care of myself. And also remember that not everyone is going to be scared of, like all or nothing, like go in there and do the detox and do the protocol. So yeah, it's just this wild reminder constantly that, oh yeah, we're all different. We're all different. And like, we know that, right? Like logically we're like, yeah, duh. But again, human design picks it apart and shows us like, it like pulls back the hood and it's like, this is why. And it's like, holy crap, like it's complex and beautiful. And it's just, I've softened since understanding human design in the sense that I no longer expect anyone else. Like I don't hold people up to my own standards. I don't expect everyone to like, it's like, why can't they keep up or why can't they do this? It's like, oh, they have their own gifts and their own challenges. And it's just, I think I imagine a world in the future where everyone understands their human design and then parents their kids by their human design, all that kind of stuff.
Yes, I'm actually thinking the same exact thing. I'm like, I bet my two kids are wildly different human designs based on my son's like me and my daughter's like, where's my breakfast? Didn't you make my breakfast? And my son's like, are you tired? Do you want me to help make? Like, they're just like two completely different. Like my daughter's like a doer and my son's got to like feel the whole thing out before he does the thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, super interesting. And yeah, it's
for the whole family.
one more relationship, right? That you are, because we're just all in this relational, energetic world of relating to one another. And if you want some sort of intimate ability to connect to whoever you're wanting to relate to, understanding, and I love that you said it's helped you soften, because what it takes out is like that ego of like, my way is the right way. this is what makes sense to me. I don't know what's wrong with you and why you can't figure it out and do it this way, right? It allows you to understand that like that's not how that person operates. And that's okay. And usually if they operate differently, like they have gifts that maybe you don't, and being able to kind of see it just for what it is, instead of kind of this like, total thing that you have to fix or, grapple against is just, a beautiful way to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually IHP really laid the groundwork for me to deepen my knowledge of human design, because it's so cool, the parallel, because it's like, I can be interpreting someone's functional medicine labs or interpreting someone's human design chart. It's like the same like sauce, different ingredients or something, but it all just combines so well. And like, everything you said is spot on.
Yeah. Yeah. Or just investigative natures of how to move someone from the position of maybe unwell that they're in and try to get them, moving forward to a, more fulfilling either physical health, mental health, emotional health, but it's all connected. And so I love, the human design component. So if someone's listening, is there a website we can always, if you don't know it off the top of your head, if someone's like, oh, I want to know my human design, what website do you use? We can link it in the show notes. And then I would love for you to share all of the places that you show up. So social media accounts or websites, all of that stuff.
Yeah. So there are a ton of different places to pull your human design chart for free. Just be careful if something's giving you like a personality, like questions to answer, that's not correct. You need to actually put in your birth time because it's based on where the planets were when you were born, that sort of thing. So it's a little woo-woo. But myhumandesign.com, that's Jenna Zoe's website. My body graph, I'll send these to you after too for the show notes. And then the other one I like is Jovian. And you can go there, pull them for free. And I do in-depth readings with people as well, and human design journeys, especially. Actually, I do a lot of those for entrepreneurs or new entrepreneurs who are just interested in starting a business in a way that benefits their own energy as well as, the people that they're serving. So that's a nice way to kind of dive into this, because you'll notice that human design is its own language. It can feel a little overwhelming, but I would say just start by learning your type and your strategy and your authority. You'll kick off there. I am most active on Instagram. So I'd say that's the best place to connect with me. I'm at Erica Allison Wellness, and Allison only has one L. I show up there nearly daily. And I would just love if you guys have questions about human design or whatever. I'm happy to connect and chat about it.
Great. Thank you so much. Such a pleasure having you on the Integrative Health Coach Success podcast. This was such a fun conversation for me, and I'm sure our listeners got a whole lot out of it. So I thank you again for being here.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, Erica, we'll be in touch soon. Thanks again.
Bye.